le ke u whamamalu atu talamalu e whanua lotu pea moe ako. Pea malomo e la maria hau eiki moe lere ia e tonga o ta ape. Tau whiawhia e hoa whakoloa koe ni ki tau whiha ake i he ngalua pe i he hoa whakoloa koe ni pau. Koe tau taimi i he hoani i he ana māsima o ku osi ai miniti e tahataha me he hiwa e whiawhi. Tau whiawhia ko renga koe tau kau whakataha heni pea mo e Vea Law me i tonga tau whanua tupuanga. Aia koe tōtaha koe ni o ku i tonga i he tainimina e alo ki ai koe tokoni ki he campaigni tulu tulu kalani walu me he tonga tapu hongo fulu pea o ku i he tafa aki ko eni o e computer. Pe kona whaanga i ko ia e ngai computer na e nau project whakana nau whakahoko i tonga koe o ate puha o ku iai e ngahi laptopu i loto e wanoa ke tokoni ke prokalama ako ko ia a tonga. Pea koe ahoni tau whiawhia ke tau toi kau whakataha heni mo Mr. Law ko hinga ke whaipaha ki whakatala noa ki he ngahi ngau e ku whakahoko me tu unga ki ai mo ngai palani ki he kahao. Joining us tonight is Vea Law from all the way from the kingdom, from Tonga. And we are happy to have him once again, with the Tukfono Matonga Talk Story program with us tonight. And we're so happy to see you again, Mr. Law. So how are you and how are things in Tonga today?
Malole, saipe, saipe. Things are very good in Tonga. It's about 78 degrees where I'm at, but I'm fortunate enough to have the ocean breeze on me. It's a warm day here, but the ocean breeze is keeping things nice and comfortable. I just returned from Hapai on the airplane and came back to Tongatapu. And so we're very blessed to be with you and Tukufonua Ma Tonga, Malo.
Malo Bito Vea Law, and I believe our dialogue will be mostly in English. And, just for your information, I guess, the audience here, they only can speak Tongan, I guess, but that's fine, So I know, like, I think maybe like before November 20th, we had a discussion with the candidate with Tulu Tulu. Mafua and you folks shared your vision about the use of smart box, that has 20 computers in it for education, mainly for elementary school. And, the outcome of the election, the candidate didn't make it, but what are your plans now? I mean, with regards to the use of technology, especially the smart box in Tonga, going forward? Are you still going to promote the use of smart box in Tonga, or are you planning to use something else?
Malo, Pito. So the great thing about the private sector, last time when we talked, you asked me if the candidate that Tonga for Tonga has endorsed is not favorable, what would we do? Well, this is what we do in the private sector. When we were highly hopeful the Tulu Tulu Kalaniwalo would have been successful, and we believe that would help us change some legal structures and some laws and lobby to change some laws to help Tonga develop. Now that he was not successful, our motto for 2026 is 10 times stronger. So we're not doubling down. I'm 10 times down. So even more now, I believe that the private sector needs to step up and help the country of Tonga develop. So we are hitting it hard. So last time we talked about the smart box, and how we are implementing it. We have been chosen with the U.S. Embassy and working with Tonga High School and the principal there, as well as Australian aid programs. And the U.S. Embassy is rolling out a program with Starlink and paperback books. And Tonga for Tonga will be able to be involved to be able to have an offering to Tonga, the smart box system. So as soon as we get that Minister of Education in place, as far as education goes, yeah, we're coming in hard, strong. We're bringing in technology. I met with my investors the other day and I said, hey, it's time for everybody to open up their checkbooks because the movement needs to be stronger now than ever. So that is what's going to happen with moving forward. We're coming in and we're coming in strong.
Wow, that's amazing to hear that. So, are you folks still? I know you are working along with some of the schools in Tonga, but what about the ministry itself? Are they still supporting you folks with your plan moving forward?
So we still have the commitment from the CEOs of the Ministry of Education. And of course, it will have to be certified by the new incoming Ministry of Education once the cabinet gets formed. But even outside of approvals with education, we are fully prepared to open up private areas and private locations if we need to be able to offer the smart box for those who can't afford education. So that's where I'm saying we are coming in 10 times stronger. As well as we've also networked out with different NGOs like the Ofaki Hapai, who is doing a lot of great things with education in Hapai. And that's the event that I'm just returning from. But we've partnered up with them. And we've also partnered up with the embassy to try to get sister city programs, including Tonga, so that we can get US cities on board with agreeing to support villages here in Tonga. So we're coming in really strong for our 2026 platform. And as soon as those election results were read, we took 2 days off to regather ourselves. We asked how can we re-strategize to come back even stronger, to fortify the areas that we were now weak in because Tulu wasn't successful. And, you know, in a way, I almost think it's kind of a blessing because before we were so focused, you know, on trying to implement this in District 10, where Tulu Kalanivalu was going. Now that we've re-strategized and restructured, we're working as Tonga as a whole. We are Tonga for Tonga. And so we were so excited to get out to the other islands. So we're really excited.
Yes, I know we're going to talk about Ofa Kihapai later on, a little bit more about the company, but let's look at, the technology acceptance by the people of Tonga. I know you grew up here in the U.S. and anything here in the U.S. is technology, and people are very used to the use of technology, like from elementary school to baby boomers generation. They're very skillful in the use of technology. But what do you think about the people of Tonga? I mean, are they accepting the use of technology? Uh, what level do you see in Tonga?
So yes, most people here in Tonga have access to a smartphone. TCC and Digicel. Tonga, when Tonga wanted a wireless phone under T4 and T5, under TCC, they were one of the pioneers for communication based on what the Kings wanted as far as the people to be able to communicate. And as the technology with cell phone and TV has advanced, so has the access. Most people have a smartphone and are used to using some form of technology to get information and communication here in Tonga. Now we've got some dynamic shifts that are changing to where you've got a US company with Starlink. Starlink is here now, and they are also this program that we're working with the US Embassy on getting our system our smart box system implemented into the outer islands and the current school system, that is actually a Starlink program. So the embassy is bringing in 60 Starlink hubs that they're going to be able to place throughout the Kingdom of Tonga, so that the information as far as Wi-Fi and the information online is going to be readily available in these hotspot centers. And so we're starting to see, with the use of the satellite communication of Starlink, we're easily adopting, and people are getting more and more familiar with the technology here. Another great thing, that one of the original goals of Tonga for Tonga that we met with Prime Minister Dr. Eke with earlier in the year was the use of bringing in more financial institutions. So one of the items that Tonga for Tonga wants to do in 2026 is look at collaborating and bringing our own financial system in here. And part of that financial system has to do with a point of sale system. And what that would do is, if we can get a retail point of sale system in every retailer, right now, the current point of sale system is companies outside of Tonga. And we would like to be able to be one of the first point of sale systems inside Tonga that would be able to capture the Visa and MasterCard credit card, bank card, so that when people are doing a transaction, it's more technology helping that will help the technology for bookkeeping, that'll help the tax base because things are tracked easier. And so there's a lot of different areas right now that we're focusing on with technology outside of the education system to really help modernize and develop Tonga's infrastructure. And we're all doing that from the private sector.
Great. So, in speaking about adoption, technology, like should Tonga be adopting technology from the US or China or any other country? What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I I think technology, the technology difference between the first world and a third world is pretty big.
Mm,
And I don't know if Silicon Valley is in the United States, and they have some of the most highest advancement levels, leading AI, leading hardware and manufacturing. So I don't know if I could really say that technology from a certain source is a bad thing. It's how you
mm.
use that technology, right? So I think the protocols that we as Tongans need to be focused on is, once we get the hardware here, how are we going to use it to modernize Tonga? Whether it comes from China, the US, Singapore, I think it's a tool. It's how we as Tongans use that tool that's going to determine our success as we advance into a first world country. And yes, I just said that. We are going to get Tonga into a first world country.
Awesome. I'm so happy to, to hear about that. And that's, what we uh, desire for Tonga, that one day Tonga will just like New Zealand or Australia or America, because technology come with a lot of benefits and, especially like business and education and things, things of that nature. So, but what about the use of the website technology in Tonga? Because, like people, out there overseas, New Zealand or Australia or anywhere in the world, but they still love their country of origin. They still like to visit some of the website and look up some of the events and occasions in Tonga. So, is there any areas that needs to be updated or upgrade in terms of the user website? Perhaps maybe like the hospital, like online payments or something like that. So we can easily make, transaction, over the internet. So what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So where we see this a lot, this type of technology for website utilization, is with tourism, because it's really hard for people to Google places to stay, things to do. And then when they do get on the website, it was like back when I had a AOL, American Online email account. Everything's, slow. And so it's really hard to navigate. So one of the things, if and I will make it available. Our Tonga for Tonga development plan, our 50-year development plan, covers a lot of this website infrastructure. And what we're trying to do in tourism, besides building the resorts that we're looking at doing, is we want to try to be able to have like a, you know, if somebody looks at like Las Vegas, for example, it's close to where you are over there, they can go to a website called vegas.com. And it is like an online concierge service that has every vendor, every ticket, every hotel, every restaurant, all linked to one website. So one of the things that we want to do in 2026 is we want to come out with a Tonga for Tonga website to where when somebody just types in Tonga, we're up there, and then it's us. We're going to go out and we will link with the other or help develop other websites to be able to get access and really drive that tourism. So that's one area that we're focused on to try to get technology through the website. And the great thing about how those operate now is you don't technically need the physical server space anymore. There are so many website hosts out there where you can just link into their cloud that we don't need to pay for the big infrastructure of having our own servers. We can lease that space with mega servers outside of Tonga until we get to the point where we can have our own servers. What that does is that allows us to have this project ready ASAP. And then as the country grows and the infrastructure grows, and then when we can afford to be our own servers, we can look at actually having that physical server in Tonga. When you talked about healthcare and medical, that is a big part of technology. And, you know, I think a lot of people don't realize, but the healthcare system here is it's a social program. So if I were to get sick and needed to go see a doctor, I could go in there and my doctor visits covered under the budget of the medical system here in Tonga. The issue with that is our GDP is about 600 million ponga a year is our GDP. And our hospital bill last year, I think, was 611 million. So we don't even produce enough in country to cover our hospital bill. And that is why we are so reliant on foreign aid to operate this country, is because we use it up all in healthcare. And some of the things that Tonga for Tonga is trying to do, and we mentioned this during the campaign, is try to bring in the mobile clinics um, and have an offering of a modality, which is a medical term for service, that would be equal to what you would get in our first world and be available for cash pay recipients. And what we're hoping with is we're hoping that some of the areas that we're trying to target, such as diabetes, and I'm not talking about into care like the dialysis machines. You know, it's very interesting that when you go on dialysis, the average lifespan of a dialysis patient is 3.5 years. So these are all end of care services that we are having here in Tonga. What we're trying to do with diabetes is we're trying to get more into a preventative modality to where we don't have to go to end of care. End of care treatment is very expensive, but preventative maintenance care is very affordable. And so one of the modalities that Tonga for Tonga is focusing on next year is a modality that's called insulin resistant therapy. And it is a therapy that gets your pancreas jump started again by artificially giving you the insulin you need through anesthetic pumps. And then once your insulin levels rise, your cells are getting properly fed, the self-healing processes come involved. And that's a very inexpensive modality that we could offer. That's a modality that I think we could make successful in the private sector, and then the public sector could easily take it over and maintain it. Because ultimately, if we are preventing people from going down that horrible path of diabetes, it would save our public healthcare system a lot of money in end of day care. So there would be more money available by doing a preventative care. And so we're really excited about areas like that. Another thing that we're doing with the cash crop initiatives is we're looking at herbs that are good for blood pressure, that are good for gout. You know, if you have really bad gout, one of the best things for gouts are cherries. And, you know, we don't have cherries here. I don't even know if cherries would grow here. But, you know, if people that have gout problems, go get a bag of red cherries and eat them. And so we're looking at a lot of the natural ways that,
Okay.
you know, can we grow herbs, or can we grow herbs that the holistic companies want and do an exchange of, hey, you give us the cherry supplement, we'll give you the, you know, ginseng supplement. and do a trade there. So we're really getting inventive to try to up our healthcare, both in new technology and modalities, as well as going back old school and getting into the holistic, natural approach.
Wow.
I told you, 10 times stronger. We're coming in hard with a wrecking ball. It is time.
That's awesome, and I think not only Nuku Alofa and Hawaii, but the little remote islands will also benefit from those services, and the use of
Deal.
technology. So, on our last program, you folks mentioned about extending the use of smart box or computers to people in the village, like whoever in the village, that needs to be educated and trained on the use of technology. So are you folks still going to do that? And if you continue to do that, what are your plans on training people, especially, the older folks, that never been used a laptop or a Chromebook before. I know you mentioned that nearly everybody in town has a smartphone, but what was the training strategies now for the people of Tonga?
Perfect question. So yes, we are planning on doing that, but we're coming in 10 times stronger on that one too. So we have allocated on our private budget 20%, which also mirrors the US Embassy's budget. They're allocating 20% for training programs. And so our strategies are, we look for operators. The operator in Hawaii is going to be Ofaki Hawaii, and we will get them set up. They are starting private sector areas, businesses that would be able to encase the smart box. They will set up their people, and then we will train their people and then have ongoing training. So that's how we're doing that in the private sector growth. Now, with the embassy, when this same question was brought up, we are also prepared that as the embassy rolls this out into certain villages, that we will go out and train those operators of whoever the embassy and the villages choose. So yeah, 20% of our project is now directly associated with training, so that this is the quality of the person operating can help train for both adults, children, and those who want to utilize the smart box.
Okay, well, I guess, that's how to turn on or turn off, how to surf the internet. But I want to know about any particular training for IT security behaviors and internet, threats and other malicious activities on the internet. Because, like people nowadays, they open up, they surf the internet or social media or whatnot. They see something, they click on it, and they don't even know, they're not supposed to click on it. So, what are your vision or your plan? Because I know Tonga, they're pretty infant to the use of technology. So, do you folks have that kind of training ideas to make sure that the people in Tonga are they know what they're doing because now we are connecting to the World Wide Web, and it could be like a back door for hackers or something like that to get into the system, to the government system, to your own personal data and information. So, what are your what are your takes on that?
Well, remember, the smart box is not online. It is a closed network system. So the utilization of everything that we have on the smart box is not subject to viruses or malware or anything like that online, because it's not hooked online. It is a self-contained system. It does not go online. As far as the Starlink system that the U.S. Embassy has, I do believe on their budget item, they do have cybersecurity on there. I know Tonga in general does have a department here that focuses a lot on that. I don't know if you're familiar, but earlier this year, the banking system was getting hacked quite a bit. And I know, like, the development bank at the time when I was investigating that financial institution and working on some projects with them. They went through a huge upgrade with their server protocol and their system because they got hacked earlier this year. And so I do know that Tonga is aware of the issues and the problems. And I believe they formed a coalition. It's the public sector. That's where we need to bring Tulu into the conversation because I'm not really familiar. But as far as the private sector, every project that we're associated with either has a line item for that security, or with our smart boxes, it's just not online. We're self-contained for that very specific reason.
Okay, I see. I see. I
Yeah.
mean, I understand, like you mentioned about, it's a self-contained, no connecting to the internet or whatnot. But then at one point, like you mentioned about Starlink, like connecting to the Starlink, which is then Starlink to anywhere in the world. But anyway, so what I
So,
want to, oh, okay,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. So that Starlink protocol, where they're trying to get Starlink out into the schools, that is being overseen right now by the Ministry of Education. The person that was in the meeting with us was actually the principal of Tonga High, and I think they're coming through it like a library,
Okay.
use in their libraries to have the children have access for that. And I'm kind of reminded back when we started getting internet in my school. I mean, I graduated high school in 2003. So we kind of went through that internet boom. And I think, as far as keeping kids safe, access online, you can put those safeguards on your access on your things that are, controlling, can't go into any adult sites or activities, emails are monitored. So I'm very confident that the U.S. Embassy bringing in that system is also going to bring in that type of security protocol for the public enterprises that are using that, like the board of Ministry of Education. Um, it was a light item on there. Starlink in general is one of the most tech savvy entrepreneurs in the world, and he does a very good job. Mr. Musk does a very good job with that. So I think at the end of the day, we need the laws to encompass this because we know the technology is there and we know the technology is including it. But that's where the private sector, like myself, really is going to have to start turning into the lobbying power because we need laws that are going to protect the consumers from a lot of the scariness that's out there. It needs to be done through legislation and the law. Malo.
Exactly, because I think it was like a few months ago, they also released like a letter from the healthcare system, from the health ministry in Tonga, that the system was also breached by some ransomware from New Zealand or something like that. So I mean, I know we're still, in the infant phase or whatever or stage in Tonga, with regards to the use of technology, but the world are looking, they're watching what is going on in Tonga right now. And I think, we need, people with background in cybersecurity, so they can actually help contribute, to the administration and management of the overall network in Tonga. And so far, I kind of like went into the all the laws that has been passed, the bills that has been passed and become an act in Tonga. And so far I have noticed like two acts relating to, one is cybersecurity and one is computer crimes, something like that. So and and I agree, I 100% agree with you that the government of Tonga, they need to make more laws, to govern and to regulate, the use of technology either at work or at home. So what do you think? You folks, I know
You,
Tulu, he could be a good person to come up with with a motion, relating to the use
you.
of technology, cybersecurity or whatnot, and and turn it in so the parliament can pass the law. So what are your thoughts on making more laws for the
Well, you
technology?
know, let's kind of talk about the issues and then we'll get to that. So most of the people that hold these positions do not have a background in, they don't have a legal degree. They're not lawyers. They're not legislators. They're people that are popular, right?
Mhm.
And so there's a standard um, deficiency between um, who they are as a representative and what their qualifications they are as a legislature.
Mhm.
And so with that deficiency, um, they're great with the people, but they're not great being a legislator because they don't have a legal degree. But there are people out there that have legal degrees. And so what I'm hoping for is I'm hoping that we can get the representatives and the leaders to understand that, hey, their strength is not in legislation and their strength is not as litigators. Their strength is leaders of the community. So we need to be able to partner or outsource the legislative part. There are so many laws, just like let's get back to the election a little bit. The law states that the financial budget of your election has to be turned in like 12 or 14 days before the election. So that means there should be zero, uh, you know, things happening before the election. But the rule is well, because we know that's not possible, that we're going to, I think they go all the way up till 24 hours the day before, then they stop. So that's the rule, but nobody has done the diligence to change that law. So we have a lot of laws in the system that are just outdated. They're just outdated. And nobody's gone back has gone through to set up. So not only do we need to introduce new laws, but we need to fix the laws that we have there so we can function in a modern world. The second problem to getting this transformation done is how we operate as a government. So you have the judicial, equal to you have the judicial group. Um, and then you have parliament that's made up of a House of Lords and a House of People representatives voted by the people. House of Lords are voted by the nobles. And then you have the executive, which is His Majesty the King, who empowers a vote of a prime minister to form an executive cabinet to run the day to day. And here, in my opinion, is the problem. All but a possibility of 4 positions in the cabinet are to be picked from the legislative branch, parliament. So you have an issue where you've got legislators being voted in to go in and litigate the laws and write laws, but then they also form the executive day-to-day operations under the king. And now you've got a person wearing 2 hats. And last I checked, there's only 24 hours in a day and we've got to sleep somewhere. So you've got people in there automatically. You've made a conflict of interest because he who execute the law can write the law. So when does the executor just get to do whatever he wants? And then he just backfills the law to do whatever he wants. So now you have a very strong ruling governance body, right? And so we have an issue with that, a big issue with that. And we saw that this year earlier in the banking system, where PM Eke acted as the prime minister, which couldn't interfere with the bank issues. But because he was the finance minister, he was allowed to So when does that law hold up? He gets to interfere with the banks as the minister of finance, but he's also the prime minister. And I brought this up to his face, so I have no problem saying it publicly. I'm sure I'm probably not a big fan of Prime Minister Eke. I love the guy. I wish him the best, but it cost me a lot of investors when he, as the finance minister, interfered with the fight between the National Reserve Bank of Tonga and the Tongan Development Bank. Because my investors now say, well, if a politician can state what happens by the laws and wear 2 hats, we're not putting our money in the country. And that put me back a little bit. So we went to work and we got different investors. So we need to be able to say, okay, if you are the guy that gets to carry out the law, are you supposed to have the power of the law? And this is a huge, huge shift. And I'm probably going to have a target on my back now that I've said that. But the truth of it is, we need three functioning bodies here. We need a legislative, we need an executive, and we need a judicial. And until we make the amendments to our Constitution, we'll never develop. And here's my example. Look at the difference between Mexico and the United States. Both in the same area, both got a lot of land, both got a lot of resources. But the United States has a strong constitution. So they were able to grow strong. Mexico does not. And so we as Tongans need to study from our friends abroad and say, what can we do to make Tonga strong? And that starts with that constitution. And there needs to be some major amendments. But success breeds success, right? I have control on what I do as the private sector. I have to deal with their regulations, but we're coming in hard, and you better believe you that we're going to be lobbying for a strong constitution, because the stronger the laws are, the stronger we are in the private sector, and we are getting strong.
Thank you, Mr. Law. So you mentioned, some very, very important elements, with regards to our government in Tonga. So I know most of the legislator here in the U.S., they either a lawyer or business people, very successful, they're very well educated, well trained, legislators here in the U.S. But perhaps maybe like 10, 20 years from now in Tonga, we'll have a more qualified people to get into
And and that's why we're starting so strong in education, because that's our game plan. Is we've got to get the education here so that cost can equal effect, and effect is a bulldozed
yes.
long term. So anyway, yeah, absolutely. Rome wasn't built in a day, and hey, we're starting to build in Tonga. And if we're the next Rome, look at Great Britain, small island, at one point had influence all over the world.
Yeah,
I'm not going to announce that one yet. We're a bit away, but hey, let's just get us to our first world. We'll go from there.
right on. So let's, I mean, since, you talk, you share, a lot of things about politics, do you think that the people of Tonga knows exactly what democracy means, the way how we define here in the US? Because what are what do you see in Tonga, monarchy versus democracy? And I know there's quite a few people out there in Tonga, they're promoting, democracy, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to begin with, I think Patoa is a four-letter word, so I'm not even going to go down their street. An organization that takes to the streets, complains a lot, burns down the Capitol. That is not an element of success in my book. And I know that they did a great job marketing, and I know they're one of the biggest implementers of democracy. But my question to them is, you guys have a lot of complaints, but I yet to see any solutions.
Mm.
Second, yes, right, just looking at the election right now, we've had the last two prime ministers have had their struggles, and this current government is the tail end of the government for them. There was a vote of no confidence, and now we have where the House of Lords have nominated some of their own to be prime minister. Well, back when the new constitution, it was kind of an understood qualification that they always wanted the prime minister from the people's reps, because they felt that that was a good move for democracy, because the prime minister, the head of the executor for His Majesty, would be voted in from the people if it came from the people reps. But what we have found, and what I think the feeling is, people go back to, since the new constitution amendments were put in place in 2010, which, hey, I'm a big fan of. I wouldn't be allowed to be a dual citizen right now if it wasn't for that. So I very much appreciate what they did in 2010 with that. But where I see an issue is it wasn't written to be as strong as it could be in today's world. But that's the great thing about constitutions, is you can do amendments. And I think we need to have those amendments to get strong. And so I think the people, you have two kind of stories. You have the person that thinks, if we go back to where the nobles and the royals are running things, that's a backward move for Tonga. But then you have other people that say, well, for the last 15 years, we've been operated with the people representatives, and our lives aren't getting better. So maybe we need to let the nobles take a chance again and try to work together. And then you have companies like me that say, hey guys, we can have our cake and eat it too. We don't, we're a hybrid, right? We have traditions of nobility and kings when we live with nobles, we live with His Majesty, but we also have this strive to put our place in the world where we have a democracy. But democracy is very expensive. And my biggest worry, if we get into a democracy too fast, we're going to suffer the democracies of what happened in Venezuela, throughout South America and Mexico, where you start getting very strong gangsters coming into the country, and they start running the country, and they do it for the wrong ways. They bring in drugs, they bring in profiteering. So we need to be careful about how fast we switch to democracy, because our Constitution is nowhere near protecting the people. If we were to overnight become a democracy, that would never happen. We would be a Colombia. We would be riddled with cartels. Villages would split apart. Drug lords would come in. Guns would come in, and it would be very scary. So I spent most of my life prolonging in the USA. I am 110% pro-democracy, but I'm also a realist. And because I am a social economic developer, I know what the bad side of that democracy shift looks like. So we need to be very careful about how we institute democracy. Now, as far as the traditional sense, being Tongan is being a kingdom. And so that is a deep, deep subject. So we need to be able to respect those traditions. Everybody, our whole system, our Fahu system, everything goes back to that kingdom, that royalty. So what I believe is we need to unite, we need to work together. We need to have the best that we can have in democracy, and the best that we can have is in the kingdom, and we need to put that forward, because that's who we are. We're not a democracy. We're not a full kingdom. We're a hybrid. When they declared serfdom and made the democracy and no more serfdom here, we became that hybrid. And we need to be able to very fragilely move throughout this world, or we're going to have some serious problems. So I don't think just ramming in a democracy like we have in the United States, it won't work here. I can tell you it won't work here. And I can give you a plethora of countries where it didn't work. And they're all ridden with cartels, crime bosses, crime lords. And you know what? The people like them too, because they're getting fed by that. And so we don't want that for this kingdom. We've got to do it the right way. We've got to unite. We've got to work together. And we've got to allow the traditional royals and nobles to have a say, and the democratic process and the people have a say. We just need a bigger, stronger constitution to allow that to work in harmony if we are to succeed. So I hope those legislators are ready, because that change needs to happen for the development of Tonga.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm here in America, and we love the democracy here in America, but we don't want to end up like Hawaii or New Zealand or Australia or or places like that, because I think, because our population in Tonga is so tiny, so small, and I think whatever the structure that we have right now, as of now, I think that's sufficient for, to lead and to protect our people in Tonga. So, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that particular issue. So, but I know our time is coming up, but let's talk a little bit about Ofa Kiha. I know you will be directing us to, some of their offices, maybe like next week, so they can join us. But tell us a little bit more about what is Ofa Kihapai.
So Ofiki Hapai is a group of people out of San Mateo and San Francisco area. When we look at the migration from Tonga to the US, it was Hawaii and San Francisco, LA, Seattle. Anyway, so when a lot of these people migrated, this is the San Francisco, San Mateo people. They got an email from a person, I can't remember the name, so I'm not going to try. Just kind of stating that, hey, we were getting some assistance out here in Hapai, but it's not enough for the children. And as a member of the community of Hapai, I'm really worried for the children. And that letter got to the right people in San Mateo, and they decided that, hey, we're going to go and we're going to find the sponsors, we're going to raise the money, and we're going to come over and give full ride scholarships to these kids that are struggling and aren't seeing a lot of the money that the main island sees. And so they formed Ofa Kiha Pai, and it started out as a few scholarships. And over here this last week, they were able to offer 168 students after grammar school to graduation scholarships. And I met with this group a few months back when I flew into San Francisco, and I was just observing them. And I asked if I could continue to observe. And as I saw them grow, and as I saw how they stimulated, I started to say, hey, is there any way we can collaborate on some ideas? One of those ideas was the U.S. Embassy Sister City program, and then we were lucky enough. Tonga for Tonga was lucky enough to be a sponsor and help them over here in Tonga as they rolled this out in Hawaii. And man, I'll tell you what, you put 168 students and their families in one area. And, if you look on our Tonga for Tonga website, I was honored enough to actually, hand the scholarship to each kid and take a picture. It was a hard day to keep my eyes dry. It was very, very magical. And that is all to do with the wonderful people in the United States with Ofaki Hapai. And I know they want to do Ofaki, Utah, and they're looking at doing, a branch there. And with this sister city program, and that's really what I want to talk about. It's December in the United States. I know all you very successful businesses are looking for a tax write-off. I want to, say, hey, Ofa Kiha Pai is a great organization that's trying to fund directly the scholarships. And, unlike a lot of entities where 100% of their donation goes to their scholarship program, and it's just great. And they safeguarded that money. They came over and delivered that money, and they delivered it to the schools. So we know it got paid. We know those kids have that opportunity paid off for them. So it was just an amazing program. They're working right now to have San Mateo be a sister city through the U.S. Embassy program. Tonga's U.S. Embassy is awesome at adopting the sister city program. So if any of your viewers have it in with a city council or a mayor, please get a hold of either you at Tukufunoa Tonga or Tonga for Tonga or Ofakiha Pai, so we can get your city signed up with the sister city program. What that allows anybody to do is you can go down to the city, you can donate to the city, you can qualify for that tax write-off, but more importantly, that sister city will directly benefit area here in Tonga. So, San Mateo, they want Hawaii, and it'll just set up. So the more cities from the U.S. that we can get involved, especially where it's December, hey, don't give it to the federal government. They're big enough. Give it to Tonga through a tax write-off through one of these sister city programs and these non-for-profits. And right now, I'll tell you too, Tonga for Tonga has a U.S. chapter 2 right there in Utah. Alani Fua is our CEO over there in St. George, Utah, and we're a 501c3. So any of you successful companies that I want to be able to help Tonga, well, we can get you some tax strategies with the U.S. government on how to do that. So, it's Christmas, it's the season of giving. We just were fortunate enough to give 168 kids full ride scholarships. So, join the movement, donate, and get your tax write-off. Better Tonga than the federal government.
Awesome, Mr. Law. So we're so happy to have people like you, who are born in Tonga but grew up here in the U.S. But now, have the desire to go back to our country of origin to help our people, especially, the rising generations, with education or whatnot. But Ofa Kihapai, that is amazing, for whoever, came up with that
They
idea.
organized that, I believe, in 3 weeks. Yeah, it was under a month when they put all that together. And then it wasn't just scholarships. They brought over they had container shipped So they were just going to send the containers. They weren't going to do mini scholarships. So they had like 3 or 4 containers full of backpacks, school supplies. That's how they started, right? And they shipped those out a couple months ago. And then it just grew to now they could do the scholarships. And so I think they raised the money for the scholarships in 3 weeks before they got here, because they were just planning on doing the containers, backpacks, school supplies, shoes, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. So come on, if San Mateo people can do that, imagine what we could do at all of our hotspots for the Tongan population in the United States. And so kudos to the people of San Mateo, kudos to Ofa Kiha Pai. But hey, we had a guy from Salt Lake there, Orem, and he said, hey, I'm ready to go in Utah. I'm like, great, let's do it. And Arizona, Seattle, LA, Texas, all of you Polynesians that might get this in English, I'm talking to you right now. It's time. We've worked with the embassy to where you can get the tax shelters and credentials. Let's help out Tonga. You want to do something? That's how you do it. And thank you so much, Tuku Funua Ma Tonga, because we know that your mission aligns with this mission. And at the end of the day, we're all the same. We're all in the same boat. We're all Tongans helping Tongans. And malo apito and ofatu to you and your viewers for allowing us to spread the word. We look at Toku Funua Ma Tonga. We look at you like you're our brother or sister, right? We may have grown up in different places, but we know each other. And so malo apito, I really appreciate all you do and the mission that Toko Whenua Maatanga has. It's that. If we unite as Tongans, we can solve the Tongans' problems. We don't need to be reliant on China or the US. We can do it. We're strong enough as Tongans.
I I love that. I like to hear that. Mr. Law, I think we have enough Tongan all over the world to help our country of origin, which is Tonga, in so many ways. But thank you so much. Any plans of visiting Utah soon, or what's the plan? Are you going to be like there in?
So my son plays football out of Austin, Texas, and they're 2 games away from going to state again. They were state champions last year. He got a ring as a freshman. He's a sophomore this year and is starting on defense. And I told him, hey, if you get the championship game, I'm coming home early to watch that. So his game's on the 20th. If I come home there, most likely I'll spend Christmas up there in Utah with Alani and the friends there. And so, yeah, it could be. We got 2 more games. 2 more games. I told him, I said, the one thing that will pull me away from work is supporting you in the championship. So, malo.
Okay, awesome. Hey, and I know maybe like we have 2 more minutes, but what are your thoughts on the election or the race for the Prime Minister of Tonga? Who would you uh, like to be the next Prime Minister for Tonga?
Oh, that's a loaded question that's going to get me in trouble. I think I'm for letting the nobles take a run for things. I do. I'm one of those guys where the definition of insanity means I'm doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So maybe a little difference in government leadership. The one thing I will say about the nobles is they're all very highly educated because they could afford to be educated. Plus, growing up, a governor, a person that is born to govern, learns things from mentors that a commoner doesn't know. But I would hope that, with that, I'm also holding, if we do get a noble prime minister, as I'm holding him accountable with my support for that, to let's ratify some areas in the Constitution, let's make it work, let's make it amend. So it's like, it's a two-way street. So I think I am open to a noble being prime minister. But I guarantee you, whoever's prime minister, they're going to get a lot of door knocks from me because I've got a lot of work to do and I need their help. So they better get used to seeing this face. I'll camp out wherever they are. And the great thing about me is when they're overseas, I don't have to wait for them. I'll fly overseas and meet them wherever they're at because I can.
Okay, Mr. Law. Thank you so much. And We want to express our appreciation for you and your committee, your team, Tonga for Tonga, and also Ofaki Habai. What a wonderful work you folks are doing for our people in Tonga. And I believe, the King of Tonga is also happy to see his own people are coming back to Tonga to help the people of Tonga. And wish you luck in everything, and hope you come back to Tukfonoma Tonga so we can talk story more and keep us up to date with your vision and your work. So perhaps maybe like the next up in line is Ofaki Hapai. Whenever you can, hook us up with them so we can talk story. But anyways, wish you luck with everything in Tonga, back home in Tonga in the kingdom, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Malo Pito Falaiatu.
Malo.
Malo.